Good morning, Runnels family. Today is Friday. It is the first Friday of April, and that is normally the time where we have our chapel services. And we wanted to do something to stay in that routine, so to speak. And so Mrs. Brines thought it would be a good idea to record a word of encouragement for you guys as a substitute for what we would normally have on our chapel services. And so that's what I wanted to do today. I wanted to encourage you guys because of what's going on in the world around us and even here in Big Spring. So it's a little bit weird what we're going through right now. I've personally never been through anything like this. But with the COVID-19 virus, the coronavirus, it has caused our world to look a little bit different the past few weeks, and it's probably going to continue to look a little bit different for the next few weeks. And oftentimes when things get weird and when things get different, it can cause us to be a little bit uncertain, maybe even a little bit fearful. And so as Christians, we approach times like this differently than people who are not Christians do. And we do that because we believe a couple of things, and that is that, number one, God is in control of all things. And number two, God loves us very much. So I wanted to read to you a couple of verses for each one of those to prove the point that this is a truth taught in the Bible. And I want you to take those things and think about them until you feel the kind of peace that you're meant to have when you believe these two things. So the first one, God is in complete control. There's a lot of verses in the Bible that talk about this, but I wanted to mention one. It's in Matthew chapter 10. And Jesus says this. He says, "Are not two sparrows," that's a little bird, "are not two sparrows sold for a penny? And yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father." What Jesus is saying is that even insignificant events, even something as insignificant as a sparrow, a small little bird, we have a bunch of them out here, a sparrow falling to the ground, even that is determined by God. Even that doesn't happen apart from God's hand causing it to happen. So Jesus takes a very insignificant, somewhat meaningless event, and he says God is in control even there. There's another verse in Ephesians 1:11 where Paul says that God works out everything according to the counsel of his will. God works out everything according to his will, and that includes us not being able to have school right now. That includes sparrows falling to the ground. That includes viruses. God works out everything according to the counsel of his will. Now, that means that God is in control of all things, and that's a good thing because we also believe that God loves us very, very much. In Romans chapter 5, Paul says, "For while we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly." That's you and me, the ungodly. And then he says, "For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one would dare even to die. But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." One of the clearest messages of the Bible is that God loves his people. And if you ever doubt that, then think about the cross of Jesus Christ. It was on the cross that God the Father sent his own Son to take the place and to take the punishment for the sins of his people so that we wouldn't have to, so that we could be reconciled to God. God's love is a sacrificial, total kind of love for his people. And so we want to believe both of those things because the Bible teaches both of those things, and Christians believe the Bible. So God is in complete control of all things, and that includes our current circumstances here. That includes this coronavirus. God is in control of that, and God loves his people very, very much. So we can be confident that no matter how this turns out for each of us, that God is glorifying himself in the midst of it, and God will use it to bless his people. And it's up for us to simply believe those promises in the Bible. So, Runnels family, we love you guys very, very much. We miss you guys very, very much. We are eager for all of this to get behind us and for things to return to normal. And in the meantime, remember those two biblical truths, that God is in control and God loves his people. God bless. Bye.